crunched all this in my life. All this reading was in there. I can find that.
All right, the clock on the wall says it's 6 o'clock, so we'll get started. This is the City of Green Bay Ethics Board. It is Monday, April 30th, 2018, and it's 6 p.m. We've got the agenda in front of us. The first item on the agenda is roll call. So would you just go down the line here, just state your name for the record. The microphone's up here, camera's back there, so go ahead.
Sure. Mark Olson.
Cordero Barkley.
Bill Vandekessel.
Patty Keelis.
We have roll call. Like I said, you have the agenda in front of you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
A second.
Any additions or modifications? Otherwise, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. We have a couple of them in front of us. Are there any additions, corrections, or modifications to any of it? Mr. Kelly, I think you noted one before.
Yes, for the February 28th minutes on the fourth page, on the second full paragraph, starting with Alderman Zima also requested written. If you go down to the third line, it reads, Attorney Calamy stated this is a notice pleading. It should be, this is notice pleading. So the D should be crossed out and the word A should be crossed out.
All right. So let's go through, we'll do these one at a time. For the February 21st, are there any additions or corrections? Otherwise, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now for the February 28th meeting minutes, subject to the modification noted by Attorney Calamy. Are there any additional modifications or corrections? Otherwise, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve as amended.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
A second.
And we have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, next item on the agenda is the consideration of code of conduct complaint by Alder Barbara Dorf. You have the documents in front of you that you received. I just want to confirm for the board members, did all of you receive Attorney Calamy's opinion?
Yes.
Yes.
Attorney Calamy is here. Do any of you have any questions or anybody need any clarification on his opinion before we move further? No? No, okay. Alder Dorf, did you get a copy of Attorney Calamy's opinion?
Yeah, I have it.
Okay.
No.
Any questions that you have regarding it?
No.
Mr. Zima, did you get a copy of that opinion?
I did.
And do you have any questions or clarifications on
Well,
it?
I certainly have some objections and some statements I'd like to make.
Okay, and the way we're going to proceed is that we'll actually move to that next, so we'll give each of you the opportunity to address the board on Attorney Calamy's opinion and the process going forward here. And then, again, we'll review that and decide where we're going to go from here. So Alder Dorf, anything that you would like to tell or address the board in moving forward with this at this point? Please, come on.
The only thing I would like to say is that, you know, if you decide that Attorney Callender's opinion is the way that you want to go, I have no objection to that. I think I've stated before that my main goal was to ensure that the bad behaviors ended, and the electorate made that decision for us, and the behaviors will not be going on anymore. So I don't have a need to continue with this process if that's what you decide. Okay?
So just for clarification, is my understanding you're not withdrawing your complaint, you're just allowing the board to
Yes.
make its determination as to how to proceed?
Yes, I would want to honor the wishes of the board.
Okay, very good. Mr. Zima, any information you want to provide to the board or statements regarding how
One
this should
thing I'd
proceed?
like to just clarify something for Mr. Calney there in his opinion. On page 6, he said that since the electorate removed me from office, the electorate did not remove me from office. The majority simply elected someone. People are removed from office through recall petitions and things like that. These are honest elections, and everybody has a right to win. And in my life, I've always said that really there's no winners and losers, they're just smaller victories. Some people have a smaller victory than others. And so this insinuation that the public removed me it's really atrocious. I'd like it stricken from the record. It's just, it doesn't dignify the election process in any shape, form, or manner.
Well, I think it's a point well noted. All right. Anything further?
Yeah, I think the case needs to move forward. The present council and future candidates and councils need to know what the case decides is or isn't appropriate conduct under the code. What's acceptable, what's not acceptable. For one, I'm not here anymore. Oh, really? Well, I plan on running for office again. This case is out hanging up here. I mean, that accusations and complaints, in my opinion, cannot be left unreviewed, undecided. This puts a chilling precedent that accusations and complaints can be loosely tossed about before an election to achieve a negative election result, whether or not the accusations or the complaints are actually valid. I think the fact that this isn't being acted on potentially puts a chilling effect on our present council. Because Ms. Dorf says I can't say all the things that I said. I think I can say all of them that I said. So, where does the truth lie? What is, maybe truth is too strong a word, but what's acceptable and what's not acceptable? I personally would like to be cleared from all these allegations. This is of great public importance. What are people's freedoms of speech all about? Does a committee such as yours, or an accuser such as Ms. Dorf, or the Common Council, really have a right to tell people what words they can choose to use? Who they can criticize or not criticize? I think it's chilling. I personally want this to go forward. I think it has, whether you have ability to impose any penalty sanction, I think is beside the point. I think this needs to be decided. I think you need to hear the complaints and you need to hear what I have to say about it, and I think the council needs to hear it, because I do not want future councils or anybody to be blocked from saying what they think they need to say. And I think there are occasions, we had a case where one of the aldermen poked somebody in the chest and used foul language. I've never been accused of using foul language here. So, I think we should move forward. There's this question of, well, how can you impose something? Well, I think a discipline can be recommended, that you don't think these things should be said or whatever it is, and pass it on to the council. But of course, since I am out of office, the result of that would be stayed, that's all. You can't do anything to a person who's not there, so you stay it. But that doesn't mean a person doesn't have a right to his day in court here, so to speak. This is supposed to be some kind of due process approach, and whether I'm in office or not is beside the point. So I think you should go forward. I also have a right to appeal a decision to a higher body. So regardless of what you recommend and the council chooses to say is true or not true, if I want to spend the money, I can appeal that to a higher authority. Now you're denying me my due process. I'm supposed to sit here and take what I can think are totally false allegations by someone who I can say, well, she's a puppet of the mayor. Well, she could call me whatever she wants to call me. Doesn't matter. But I'm here to request that this move forward. Yeah, I want you to evaluate my behaviors, because I think they're totally appropriate under the circumstances. And maybe you folks won't. But that's what you're all about, right? So I think we should proceed. I'm ready, willing, and able to defend myself, and I'm happy to hear Ms. Dorf's complaints and to hear your decision about them. But no one should go here left unaccused. What does this do? This means that people can just make accusations and drop them? You can smear people without giving them a chance to defend themselves? Not good. Thank you.
Mr. Kelly, oh, I'm sorry.
Briefly, Janet Angus, I'm an attorney in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and I'm here with Guy Zuma today. And I think you really need to consider what he's just said to you. I believe that Alder Dorf's complaints all arose out of statements that were made at meetings. Now, Alderman Zuma was not an employee of the city of Green Bay at the time of the meeting. And he had the right to say in open debate at the meetings what he thought, what he felt, what he thought was important to his constituents in representing his constituents. He has that right. It's the freedom of speech. You will quelch debate at the council level if you allow complaints to come forward in this manner. He didn't swear at anybody. I don't think there are any accusations in there that he assaulted anybody, that he touched anybody, that he did anything inappropriate other than discussed and debated issues that were in front of a committee or that were in front of the common council. Now, I had some procedural problems with the complaint that was filed because you couldn't really tell what was filed. There was no date stamp, there was no time stamp. To go through 3 or 4 hours of meetings to determine what was said and the context it was said, it just seemed to be a lot of work, almost unimaginable. Some of those meetings were 7, 8 hours. They were very long. So going forward, I think that you as a committee, depending on what you decide to do, but overall may want to look at that so that other people are not subjected to complaints that are drafted in this manner. And the unburdensome duty of going through all of those meetings, because we don't have written records of all of them, they're not done verbatim, so you do have to go through each and every recording. So I think Alder Zima would like to go through all of those at a hearing and determine, you know, what is appropriate speech and what isn't, according to you. Free speech is free speech. And like I said, he was not an employee. He has a First Amendment right to debate at meetings. It's a chilling effect on the council to not allow debate to occur. One of the debates, I think, that was referenced was regarding the Gentlemen's Club in Green Bay. Well, if you're going to debate a gentleman's club, it's not going to be very nice. Some of the things that are going to come up may not be particularly appropriate, but consider the source. So I think that every allegation has to be gone through, and he has the right to have those allegations gone through, because this really slandered him. I mean, if you read the news media reports, there's an ethics complaint filed against Alder Zima, almost as if he did something wrong before you even had the hearing. And then another procedural issue was, I think he received this brief that Attorney Kelly did late Friday afternoon. That's the first time I saw it. So there was one day in order to review this and to respond. The hearing was February 28th. It took that long to draft this, but Alder Zima had one day, maybe a day and a half, to really go over it and decide what to say here today at this hearing. That seems to be unjust also. At least give someone the benefit of having 5 days of notice. And there was no recall. He didn't technically, he may have lost the election, but he wasn't recalled. He wasn't recalled out of office, so I think that needs to also be corrected in the record. And you know, there is one more thing. There is a fine that could be imposed on Alder Zima of $500. So while you can't find sanctions for him because he's not in office any longer, I guess you could fine him. But he really wants his day before you to go through this process and to clear his name. And you know, if he comes back in another year or 2 years, he runs for something else, is this going to haunt him? Is he going to end up back in front of you? I mean, I think one allegation in Ms. Dorff's complaint was handwritten in, occurred in 2004. I don't think there was a code of conduct until when? 2 years ago? 3 years ago? So you can't, how can you allow that to happen in the complaint that are filed against people? It seems to me that if this may have even been, if it's in a court of law, it may have even been thrown out on a motion to dismiss. So I think you really have to look at what you're doing here and realize how you affect and how this complaint affected someone who was in public office for how many years. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Let me just ask you a question. What's your position in looking at this? What's your position with respect to the fact that the code of conduct under this complaint is addressed towards an elected official, whereas we sit here today, Mr. Zima is no longer an elected official for the city of Green Bay. So what's your response or what's your argument to the fact that we still have some jurisdiction over this, since he's no longer an elected official?
He may wish to run again.
That's true, but I mean, what about today?
Well, today he's no longer an elected official. He was voted out of office.
Right, I
And
understand.
the complaint is pending. So my understanding of the brief that I wrote, I know he's no longer an elected official in Green Bay. I haven't briefed that. I haven't had an opportunity to look at that. But I think in the brief it says that an appellate court may consider a moot issue if one of the following conditions is met. Number one, it has great public importance. I just told you I thought it did. And so did Alder Zima, or Guy Zima. It has great public importance because what about future debate? What are the parameters of debate at the council meeting? I mean, does that mean that I could go and sit in the peanut gallery at the council table, and if I don't like what somebody says, I find it offensive, I can come here, and because they've chosen the wrong words, we can file a complaint? You may have a lot of complaints coming through this committee. A lot of complaints. You know, I mean, we could go on and on about things that have happened in office in the last year, and the ethical considerations of our mayor, for instance. It's sad what happens in office sometimes, and when you call people out on the carpet and you say, you know, you did something wrong, or you don't like what's happening, and you're there representing your district, do you have to be so careful in what you say? I mean, swearing and things like that aren't really appropriate, but, you know, you do have the right of freedom of speech to debate issues. So I do think it's part of great public importance. The statute's constitutionality is involved. We're talking about free speech? Is this a chilling effect? Is this conduct, code of conduct, is it a chilling code? I don't know. I mean, a decision is needed to guide the trial courts, well, that's not applicable, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I haven't looked at that. I haven't had time to look at the fact that he's not in public office, but I think he deserves to have his day here if he wants that. If he wants to go ahead with the hearing, you may find that he didn't do anything wrong. In which case, the news media is not going to be able to say, oh, look what Alderman Zima did when he was here. So, I don't know, do you have anything you would want to say regarding that?
Simple fairness.
Simple fairness. You know, unfortunately, I was out of the country when this matter came up on February 28th. And otherwise, we would have proceeded with the hearing at that point in time. But I was out of the country on a trip that had been planned for a very long time.
Understood.
So, you know, it's unfortunate because if it could have been handled at that point, who knows, maybe the election results would have been different because maybe you would have said, you know, it's free speech and you have the right to say what you want at a meeting. Like I said, it's just a chilling, I think it's a chilling effect, so. Anything else? Thank you.
Anybody from the board have any questions? Mr. County, anything you want to add to what's been said so far to advise the board?
I do want to address the notion that Mr. Zima could be fined, because under that, it's true, that's a remedy that's available, a sanction that's available. But the only way to enforce that sanction is removal from office. So the fact that Mr. Zima is no longer in office renders that sanction unavailable. And basically, I think that's the problem here. Whatever, you could find everything that Ms. Dorff said was true, and you would not be able to do anything about it as far as any type of sanction carried out. You'd really be rendering what's called an advisory opinion. You'd be saying, you wouldn't be reaching the controversy. Whatever you did regarding the controversy would have no practical effect. And that's why I raised the issue that it might be moved. Now, I have to concede, the issue of whether this is of great public importance and you need to address it is something the sport has to weigh. But as far as this matter being moot and you no longer having jurisdiction or being competent to proceed is another way you could look at this. You just don't have any authority to enforce anything at this point in time. And the point of the complaint was to correct conduct if there had been a problem.
It's also to determine standards, is it not, Mr. Allen?
Well, actually, Mr. Zima, if I may respond.
Certainly.
The board, it's to determine whether the specific allegations in the complaint as alleged, taking into consideration your specific conduct, violated the code of conduct. It's not to make broad sweeping determinations of what is a violation of the code of conduct. It's not to make constitutional determinations. This board doesn't have that authority. You would have found facts and made conclusions of law as to whether what Ms. Dorff alleged actually constitute a violation of each of those. That's as far as you go. And then the board, and then, of course, how do you correct that conduct? Then the council would have reviewed that, reviewed your recommendation. So, to determine whether the sanction was appropriate under the code. The way the code's written, it doesn't seem that you maintain any authority to act on it.
And any further questions from the board?
I have one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
So if you rule that this issue's moot, will then you strike the complaint totally and remove it from Alder Zima's record as though it didn't happen, since he hasn't had his day in court? I mean, you haven't ruled on it, and this should not go along and haunt him if he wants to run again, as if he did something wrong, because it hasn't been determined. So, I mean, if you're going to strike the entire complaint, but you really, And what's preventing the next time someone's up for reelection and someone doesn't like that individual? And 3 months before the election or 2 months before the election, knowing full well that the timing may not get through prior to the election, of coming in and making similar allegations against Alderman A or B or C or D. And I'm not meaning any inference regarding this at all, but I mean, I think it's a timing issue. So, you know, if you're going to guarantee that these matters are heard prior to elections so that they don't influence elections, maybe that's something else this board should look at. Because these allegations were chilling.
Ms. Dorf?
Hi, we'd just like to remind everyone that I was ready twice to present, and I was within the 45-day timeline, and it was not I that delayed any of these proceedings.
Right.
So I just want that to be out in public. Thank you.
It's understood. Understood. Right.
If I may, with regard to striking the entire complaint, unfortunately, it is a public record. So it is there, and to that extent, there's a record here of accusations that has not been addressed.
Again, any comments from the board, any discussion? Again, I want to make this clear. I'm one member of this body. You all know I'm an attorney, and I do these things for a living, and I don't want that to sway anybody here. You all make up your own minds as to how you think this ought to go forward, and we'll entertain a motion here in a moment. I would just say from my perspective as a member of the board that my concern is that we are here under the City of Green Bay Code of Conduct, not under the city's ethics code. Code of Conduct is a document, is a code specifically established by the city council for us to operate under. To my knowledge, there is no background state statute that this is based on, as there is with the Code of Ethics. This is simply I shouldn't say simply because it's not simple, but this is a document and a code created by the council for direction to council members. And that's the point I struggle with. I understand the concerns, and I think the concerns brought up by Mr. Zima and Ms. Angus are well noted, and they are a concern. But the concern for me is that the Code of Conduct, as I asked before, is related to elected officials. And we sit here today dealing with a situation where we no longer have an elected official that we are apparently authorized to proceed against. So my concern is, quite frankly, I'll state my position. I don't believe we have the authority to dismiss the complaint. That's why I asked Ms. Dorf before if she was withdrawing it. She said no. So I don't think we have the authority to dismiss the complaint. I also don't think we have the authority to proceed because, again, Mr. Zima is no longer an elected official. I don't think we have the ability to do anything. I understand his concerns, and as I said, they are very well noted. They are concerns that I think everybody who's come before this board have raised in one form or another in the past. But I think we are stuck on the point that the city council has given us a document that limits our authority to dealing with concerns regarding elected officials. And my position is that, my concern is that we no longer have an elected official, so I struggle to see how we can proceed. So that's my 2 cents worth. Any other board members?
I came to the same conclusion, reading through this, and once the election results were known, we no longer have a council member before us, we have a private citizen, and I can't make that leap in reviewing the information, that we have any reason to proceed, because it's not within, jurisdiction isn't the right word, but it's not within our venue to move forward any longer. And I agree, I appreciate Mr. Zima and his council's concerns, but I don't see where we can take any action based on what you said to us.
And I agree totally. I mean, this document is what we have to abide by. And I struggled with that same piece after the election results and how that was going to come into play now that Alder Geisinger is no longer an alderperson. So I struggle with that too. I don't see where we have the right or within our means to continue on. However, you know, with the comments that they both have raised on, you know, not really him having the opportunity of being heard and these allegations out there, I understand where that's a concern without a doubt. I'm not sure how that can be reflected somewhere along the line of why this did not move on any further, just because obviously with the document we don't have the right to continue on. However, you know, if this is something he chooses to run for office somewhere down the road, I understand his concerns with that, with it being out, so I'm not sure that's, you know, maybe for Attorney Kelly to respond on and how that can be addressed or how or whatever, but I do not think we have the right to move on either.
All right,
I'd just like to add something again. I'm going to repeat myself a little bit, but I think it is of great public concern. If you want to take the word great out of it, take that out of it. It's a public concern. Your opinion and the council's opinion on what the allegations were, I think are important, even if they cannot implement some kind of sanction. And I think it's important to all due process that you have this, and I think that the public wants to hear what you think about it and what the council wants to think about it. Ms. Dorff doesn't want to withdraw her charges. I do not want to run from them. I want to move forward. So what's the problem? I think if you proceed under that, it's a public concern of whether these type of things are something admissible, because I'll tell you right now, if this stuff can stand, you're going to potentially have hundreds of cases before you. Because I'll tell you, I've been mistreated by our own mayor much more egregiously than Ms. Dorff is accusing me of. So I'm going to start bringing them forward. And everybody who's at a committee meeting that says something that somebody else doesn't like, gee, I think as long as they're not using foul language and not physically taking force, I think it's a pretty broad view of what people have a right to elect. It's their duty as an elected official to put their opinion forward as strongly as they want to. And I've heard a lot of things I didn't like. I can call them mush mouth, I can call them all kinds of things if I want. And they can say the same about me. But I think this needs to be resolved. I think you folks running from it, taking an easy way out, but I don't think this should be viewed that way. It should be viewed as, hey, we're gonna review what it is, we're gonna give our opinion about it, and the council can have their opinion thereafter, whether there's sanctions or not. This needs to be reviewed. Otherwise, this is going to lead to a lot of trouble.
Well, I take exception to the comment you made about running from something, and I take that personally. We are not running from something. We are talking about whether or not this committee has jurisdiction or right to go forward. It has nothing to do about ducking responsibility, and I want that on the record in rebuttal to what you just said.
If I was an elected official, could you bring a complaint against me for using those terms?
I'm not going to answer that. I'm not going to debate.
We're not-
I'm not going to answer.
No, I'm
What
not
I-
going to debate something like that. That's not why we're here.
And under the, again, going back to the code of conduct itself, we're not here to necessarily render advisory opinions to people on what they can or can't say. We're here to address complaints that have been brought before us. And again, I'm going to repeat myself as well. We are subject to the rules that have been provided to us by the city council under the code of conduct. That's the rules that this complaint was brought under, and those are the rules we're bound by. So as I said, we're not here to give advisory opinions. We're only here to hear the evidence that's presented under that code of conduct. So.
I just have a question, maybe this is more for Attorney Kelly. So assuming that the board decides that it takes action that we do not feel that we have the right to continue on with this, I'm assuming with this being public record, this just reflects that due to him no longer being an elected official, the board does not determine or does not decide that we can continue on. I'm assuming that's just all that goes record, not to the, just to the fact of just addressing what Guy Zima had brought up, to the fact that he does not get to respond to some of this and those types of things, that if he did want to run for office somewhere down the road, whatever capacity that may be, this just looks like, from the public perspective, just null and void. We could not take action because he was no longer an elected official. Am I correct?
I think the answer to that would be yes.
Okay.
This record would be part of the public record as
Sure.
well. Another thing that I think is important is this body is still a body that reports to the council. So I think what you're going to be making today, regardless of the way you want to go, is a recommendation. And I think that is subject to review, so I don't think it's over here.
So based on what you, okay, so based on that, if we decided we could not move on, you're saying when this goes to the city council, that they still could do something at the city council level? Is that what I'm hearing?
They ultimately are the ones that are going to be interpreting their own ordinance, and if they say, we're sending it back to you, let's say.
Okay,
Or if you say you're going to go forward, and we just go forward. So, but we would have to put some finalization on this. If you're saying we're not going forward, that has to be reported.
There has to be a report back to the city council.
I mean, you've always done that, even when you've made decisions.
correct. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so.
Any other questions from the board?
None from me.
So from hearing the comments, my census is that the concern is not to go forward, so
Motion?
I would, I'll take the laboring word here and actually make the motion. I would recommend that we report back to city council that in light of the recent election results and because of the specific provisions of the code of conduct related to elected officials, that we move that these proceedings be concluded without a decision being made on the ground that the board no longer has authority to exercise jurisdiction over Mr. Zima since he's no longer an elected official. So that's my motion. And don't ask me to read it back, 'cause read it off the top of my head.
Are you asking for a second?
I am asking for a second.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, comments by any of the board members? All right, hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So I will.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I brought up an item earlier. I'd like you to address it. Mr. Calney wrote in his report to you that I was removed from office. That is totally inaccurate. And I would like it stricken from the record.
It is a matter.
Restated in.
It is a matter of record. Mr. Calney's opinion is in the file. It's a matter of record. But so too are your comments that will be part of this record. So I don't think we have the authority to change anything, but it is in the record, just like Ms. Dorff's complaint is in the record, and your response denying the allegations to her complaint are in the record. That's where it sits. So I don't.
He's your attorney.
If
He
I
has
could-
put something false into the record.
Oh, no, it's not false, Mr. Zimmerman. You're not in office anymore.
But that
The
was not election
sanction that
to
could have
remove
been
anybody.
applied against you would have been called removal from office. That's what the reference was to. I recognize your exception to the way it comes across, and I have no qualms about changing that portion of the opinion to say is no longer in office as opposed to remove. It was not my intent to slight anyone by saying that.
All right, so noted.
So will we show on the record that that opinion letter will be corrected or
Sure, I
amended,
can amend the
appended,
opinion letter to
whatever you feel
reflect
is
that.
appropriate?
Again, the intent was to reflect the fact that it's removal from office.
Okay, and you'll share that
Yeah.
with Mr. Zimmer as well once?
Yeah,
it's
Sure.
done?
Yeah, everybody will get a
Okay.
copy of that because it's part of the record.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Agenda. All right, next item on the agenda is adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
A motion, a second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much. Thank you for your time, board members, parties.
Bill, I'm not going to be here when this goes to council.
Okay.
Because I'll be out of town.
Yeah. I will,
Bob all ready to go?
okay, yeah, just have them contact me and I'll work on.
I'm Janet Angus, I thought I'd introduce